Bryce Young, man. I got into a really heated debate with some Atlanta Falcons fans a couple of days ago. Shout out to my guy, Mad Mike Sports, who is a Atlanta Falcons YouTuber. And they were really pissing me off with how they were trying to knock and discredit Bryce Young. Like, a lot of people keep saying, man, JT, Bryce Young hasn't played a single NFL game. You don't know how good this guy's going to be. Like, listen, man. If you watch Bryce Young play at Alabama, you would know that this guy is the real deal. My only concern about Bryce Young is, can he stay healthy? I'm not concerned about his size. I don't need to see Bryce Young play an NFL game to know that this guy is going to be him. His pocket awareness, his accuracy, his ability to improvise and extend plays, his decision making, and plus his ability to read and dissect defenses are all things that translate well to the NFL level. A lot of people look at Bryce Young and they say, man, he played for Alabama, JT. He was throwing to the best receivers. He had the best offensive lineman blocking in front of him. If you watched Alabama for the last 2 years, you would know that Bryce Young carried Alabama football. Offensively last year, their two best players were Bryce Young and Jahmyr Gibbs. If it wasn't for them, Alabama probably would have had 3 or 4 losses. And every time Alabama lost last year, it was because Bryce Young wasn't on the field. The defense sold the game. I'm tired of people having doubts about Bryce Young. Like, this dude wasn't a baller at Alabama. This dude was literally carrying Alabama on his shoulders. There's a reason why Nick Saban called that 2021 season a rebuilding year. Alabama wasn't supposed to make it to the national championship. Alabama wasn't supposed to upset Georgia in the 2021 SEC championship game. There were many people going into that SEC championship game who were expecting Alabama to get blown out after they struggled to beat Auburn. But you want to know why Alabama was able to win that game? Because they had Bryce Young at quarterback. Tell me that you haven't watched Alabama football without telling me that you haven't been watching Alabama football. I was going back and forth with those Falcons fans. They were like, man, JT struggled against LSU, struggled against Tennessee. No, the hell he didn't. If you go back and you watch those games, you would know that the only time Bama lost was when Bryce Young didn't have an opportunity to have the ball in his hands late in games. Every time Bryce Young had the ball in his hands with an opportunity to win the game for Alabama, he came through. This dude has elite poise. He doesn't get rattled in big games or big moments. I don't have any concerns about Bryce Young and how he's going to perform for the Carolina Panthers. If Bryce Young ends up being a bust, it will probably be the biggest surprise in all my years covering the NFL draft and making predictions and projections about how well players are going to perform at the NFL level, because this dude, Bryce Young, is one of the best quarterback prospects that has ever come out of the NFL draft. This dude is what a lot of people refer to as a unicorn. He may not be the prototypical size that you normally see out of a quarterback. He's not CJ Stroud. He's not Anthony Richardson. He's not Will Levis. But this dude has elite football IQ. That's what matters, people. Your ability to dissect the game, to understand what defenses are running, what they're trying to do to you, what they're trying to throw at you, matters way more than size and how good of a football player you are. It doesn't matter if you have elite speed and elite size, if you're not able to read defenses. And Bryce Young's processor was probably the best trait about him coming out of Alabama. And when you look at the Carolina Panthers, that was the best place for Bryce Young, because now he has Frank Wright as his head coach. Frank Wright has been really good during his career with quarterbacks, minus what happened his final season with the Indianapolis Colts when he had Matt Ryan and Sam Ehlinger. That was a train wreck. But prior to the 2022 season, Frank Wright was really good at being able to get efficient quarterback play. Carson Wentz, his final season as a starter for the Colts, he had 27 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. That was one of the most efficient seasons that Carson Wentz had in his whole entire NFL career. Phillip Rivers was really productive under Frank Wright. They went to the playoffs. Jacoby Brissett even had a pretty good season under Frank Wright's tutelage when Andrew Luck retired right before the season. This dude, Frank Wright, knows how to get the most out of his quarterbacks. The problem with Frank Wright during his time in Indianapolis is that he was playing musical chairs with the quarterback position, and his final season in Indianapolis, it finally caught up to him, which is why when he got hired by the Carolina Panthers, they ended up giving up so much, including DJ Moore, to trade up for the number 1 overall pick so they could get Bryce Young. Bryce Young, I have no concerns about this guy being the bust. If I had to rate on the scale of 1 through 10, my confidence level and Bryce Young not being the bust in the NFL, it would be a 12 out of 10. I'm not going to give it a 10 out of 10. I'm giving this thing a 12 out of 10 because this dude is a damn good football player. I don't care if he looks like a preschooler or a toddler. When you see Bryce Young play, this is somebody who really understands the game of football. This is one of the best quarterback prospects to ever come out of the NFL draft. I'm not concerned about Bryce Young. The Carolina Panthers have a really good team around them, and I'm really surprised that so many people are low on the Carolina Panthers. They have a really good offensive line. Is this a elite offensive line? No, but I do think that this is a top 12, top 13 offensive line. They also are going to have a really good run game. You sign Miles Sanders in free agency. You're going to have Chuba Hubbard, so you're going to be able to run the football effectively. Then your wide receiving core, you may not have any big names that stand out to you. Terrence Marshall, this is somebody who's been in the league for a couple of years. We're still waiting for him to break out, but I definitely think that this can be his breakout season with them having a legitimate quarterback at the helm. What about Adam Thielen? You signed him, although he's up there in age. This is still somebody who's able to produce at a pretty serviceable level for you. You also have rookie out of Ole Miss, Jonathan Mingo, who Steve Smith was a big fan of. And this guy, Jonathan Mingo, reminds me a lot of A.J. Brown. And you're going to have a fantastic defense with one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL that's going to be able to bail Bryce Young out if he makes a mistake. I'm expecting Bryce Young to have a really good rookie season. He already done beat out Andy Dalton for first team reps. You got people out there saying, man, Bryce Young gonna struggle, man, because the Carolina Panthers throwing them out too fast. Bro, what the hell are you talking about? If you draft somebody number 1 overall, they should be able to start for you week 1. Bryce Young, what separated him from the rest of the field was his processing ability, his football IQ. I have yet to bring up any stats right now when it comes to talking about how good Bryce Young is. A lot of people who doubt Bryce Young or critique Bryce Young obviously haven't watched a lot of Alabama football. Name me one wide receiver that Bryce Young threw to last year on Alabama's roster that got drafted this year. Name me one player on the offensive line of the Crimson Tide last season that got drafted. You can't. Alabama has not been that good the last 2 years. There's a reason why Nick Saban had a drastic overhaul of his coaching staff. Even though those guys left, if Nick Saban wanted to keep those guys, he very well could have. Bryce Young was the large reason for why Alabama had the success that they had over the last 2 years. I'm so tired of people doubting Bryce Young. There's no reason why anybody should really have any big concerns about Bryce Young if you've been watching the film and you've been watching the tape. Good accuracy, he can see in the middle of the field, he can throw the ball in the middle of the field, which is something that you don't normally see from a lot of quarterbacks his size. This dude has elite pocket presence. Did you not watch him against LSU when he had multiple guys in his face and he was still on his feet, finding the open man inside of the pocket? This guy does not get rattled with pressure in his face. And honestly, to tell the truth with you guys right now, I think that Bryce Young is the third best quarterback, the second best quarterback in the NFC South. The only quarterback right now that I will put over Bryce Young is Derek Carr. And yes, I know that Bryce Young hasn't played in a single NFL game yet, and it could sound a little bit premature of me to put Bryce Young as the second QB in this division, but I trust him way more than Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder hasn't really proved much in the games that he started for the Atlanta Falcons. And Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask, dog, have you seen how awful they look so far in OTAs? They can't even hit an accurate wide receiver, and they're throwing on air. There's no DBs, No defense is lining up, and they still can't hit an accurate pass. I have no doubts and concerns about Bryce Young. I'm expecting Bryce Young to come out and have one of the better rookie seasons that we've seen out of a first-year quarterback since Justin Herbert. Bryce Young, if I had to give you a stat prediction for how I think Bryce Young's rookie season is going to go, I'm going to say 27 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, and he'll probably throw for 4,000 yards. The Carolina Panthers have a really good team around Bryce Young and an incredible coaching staff. Frank Wright is really good when it comes to getting efficient quarterback plays, and now he actually has a legitimate young quarterback to work with, something that he never had during his time as the head coach for the Indianapolis Colts. I have no doubts and no concerns about how Bryce Young is going to perform for the Carolina Panthers this year, and I think he's going to be good enough to lead the Carolina Panthers to the playoffs and also being able to win this division. This division doesn't have good coaching. You have questions about Dennis Allen, Todd Bowles, and Arthur Smith. And then there's not great quarterback play in this division. Sean Payton is gone. They replaced him with Dennis Allen, who many Saints fans still don't have a lot of confidence in. That's going to be the difference between Carolina and the majority of these teams in this division. You have a proven head coach who's been to the playoffs before. No coach in the NFC South has been to the postseason. You're going to have somebody who's really good at being able to get effective quarterback play. And also, you're going to have a really good team around Bryce Young for him to have success. Bryce Young should have a really phenomenal rookie season. And if you're doubting Bryce Young, I'm going to tell you again, go back and watch the tape at Alabama. This dude didn't just win the Hiesman for a reason. He isn't one of the few QBs in the history of Alabama football to be able to have the right to say that he carried this team on his shoulders. You people think just because he came from Alabama, he was just having the best time around him. Mac Jones, Tua Tagovailoa, A.J. McCarron, Jalen Hurts, all the quarterbacks that have came before Bryce Young have all had way better teams. There wasn't one receiver on Alabama's roster last year that got drafted. There wasn't one receiver on Alabama's team last year that even looked like they were good enough to get drafted in the first couple of rounds of the NFL draft if they were to declare. The only reliable option that Bryce Young really had was Jahmyr Gibbs. And you see where he went. He was a first rounder. Surprise, surprise. The 2 games that Alabama lost last year happened when Bryce Young didn't get an opportunity to get the football late in the game. Tennessee, they beat Alabama. LSU, they beat Alabama due to a last second 2-point conversion. I don't get why people out there are doubting Bryce Young. This dude can play. F the size. Go watch the tape. Film doesn't lie. This dude is one of the most fundamentally sound quarterbacks that you can find for somebody who's under 6 feet. He can win from inside the pocket. He's able to make smart decisions with the football. Well, JT, I gotta wait for him to play an NFL game. No, you don't. Some guys you can just look at and know that they're going to be him. Joe Burrow. You knew when he was coming out of LSU that he was going to be that guy. Same thing with Justin Herbert. I can't believe there were people out there who thought that Justin Herbert was going to be a bust. There were just certain quarterbacks that when they come out of college, you just know that they're going to be productive at the NFL level. Bryce Young, not only is he going to have a really good rookie season, but I expect him to lead Carolina to the NFC South title and to the postseason. This, in my opinion, is the best team in this division. I don't get why people are doubting Bryce Young for real outside of his ability to stay healthy. This Carolina Panthers team has a good offensive line, a solid group of wide receivers, and very good coaching. This is the best coaching staff in this division. My expectations for Bryce Young is for him to be the prophet. I expect him to stabilize the quarterback position, something that Carolina hasn't had since Cam Newton. They've been bouncing around quarterbacks ever since Cam Newton had to walk out the door. These boys had Baker Mayfield, P.J. Walker, and Sam Darnold starting games at them for quarterback last season. Year before that, they had Teddy Bridgewater. You finally have a guy who's going to be able to bring stability to your quarterback position. Bryce Young is going to have a really good rookie season for the Carolina Panthers. And if I end up being wrong, I would be extremely surprised. I really will. There's no way that Bryce Young should end up being a bust. His ability to see the field, his elite decision making, his ability to process defenses, his accuracy, his improvisation skills, there's no reason why Bryce Young should struggle.